Hey guys, this is John Carrick. I am the author of Legacy of a Mad Scientist and The Legend of Ashley Fox, two amazing science fiction fantasy novels for you guys here on YouTube, on Smashwords as free ebooks, YouTube as audiobooks, or you can buy the paperbacks on Amazon. And I have noticed that doing these conflicted cards first kind of sets the mood for the video, and it doesn't really do the cover title justice. I think we should do that after. We should do this first. This is Tarzan number 26 by Marvel Comics. Now, I kind of finally acknowledged the fact that this was late into Tarzan's pop culture. This was the end of Tarzan's pop culture era, which started in the late 30s and ran all the way to the late 70s. And then there was like a 20-year break until the mid-90s when he came back with a 20-issue run from Dark Horse, 12 or 20-issue run from Dark Horse. Anyhow, Tarzan has been kidnapped by an American poacher slash safari hunter named Roger Tory, and he has brought him back to New York for a big parade and a safari. And they are traveling. They're on their way back now. This is inside one of the two cargo planes that Mr. Tory is using to fly Tarzan. And in the background, that's Jadbalja, the black-maned lion from the Edgar Rice Burroughs novels. And here we get another one of these 5 inches by 10 inch by the full 20-inch double-page spread, where you get 4 panels across and then 2 big connecting 10 by 10 inch images. This would have been, 10 by 15 in original size. So that's pretty awesome. I like that. That's a good layout. I think that works. You don't see this very often anymore. Nowadays, if you get a double page spread, it's a full-on double page spread. Oh, I should explain what's going on. Tarzan, they're explaining to Tarzan that they're going to paralyze his vocal cords with a special serum that they're going to inject him with, and that his wife is not dead, that she's on the other plane. And this big image, we get her with sort of an L, what's called an L cut, where we get her dialogue. And then the next page, so here we cut to Jane, who's being threatened by the Roger Tory's girlfriend, the brunette in the magenta dress. And there's also a safari hunter on this aircraft. His name is I believe it's Ian something. I want to say Ian Gilchrist, but that's probably a famous actor. So that's probably not correct. But anyhow, Jane gets put into a heavy burlap sack where she cannot fight against the sort of tribal helpers, Mr. Tory. And she is kidnapped and carried off the plane. Tarzan, meanwhile, they're trying to give him this shot that will paralyze his vocal cords so that when he's put on display, this is the thinking. So this is a little bit of, I believe it's Bill Mantlo is the writer. Kept calling him Bill Milgram yesterday. Bill Mantlo has written into the script the concept that that it's perfectly legal to put Tarzan on display for the crowds as long as they paralyze his vocal cords so that he can't call out for help or do anything but growl. So apparently, as long as the person's not a citizen, it's okay to display them in a cage. That's the thinking in this script. It should be perfectly obvious that it only takes one person in the crowd with a conscience to say that's a human in a cage. What the fuck are you doing? But that never crosses their minds here. That's a plot hole that they just paste over religiously with this idea that once they paralyze Tarzan's vocal cords, that will be enough to give them the legal leeway to display him for a crowd as a wild beast. There's also the concept that it's an actor, right? Like the crowd is looking at an actor who is not complaining and he's just shaking at the bar, so why would the police set him free? He's just an actor. And Tarzan tries to strangle the doctor with his legs. One of the soldiers blasts him in the back of the head with a rifle and knocks him out, and they give him the shot. But this is strange because they transfer him to the safari, to the zoo, the display where they're going to have the show, right? Oh, meanwhile, back on the African plains, we get Korak, Tarzan's son, who's questioning the safari guys about where his parents have been taken, what happened. And they explain that they were tricked by this guy who hired them and then didn't pay them. And he doesn't take his revenge on them, but he does demand that the other tribesmen turn them over to the British East African authorities for punishment, for prosecution. And then, for some reason, he strips out of his clothes, doesn't use the Jeep, and goes off into the forest to find a way to New York. Do you get that? I don't get that. Especially when he offered his father a ride in the Jeep. In the previous issue, his father said no, and then caught, I guess he remembers that Tarzan caught Roger Tory's group before he could, and he had done that without the Jeep, so apparently that's his reasoning for leaving it behind. He doesn't explain it. He doesn't explain why he rips his clothes apart and ties it around his waist like a loincloth. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Then we cut to New York and we see no more of Korak. Here in New York, this guy Roger Tory is returning to a Barnum and Bailey / David Copperfield level parade, where his girlfriend, who apparently doesn't know anything about this, is suitably impressed. I don't know how long she's been with him. It seems like they just met while they were in Europe or something, while he was on safari. And here they display the lion. Here we also have a bunch of psychotic-looking children who really look like they would stab the lion to death and eat it for lunch, the way they're drawn here. Sort of feral New York kids. And then Tarzan in his cage. And Tarzan, despite having been given the shot, which is supposed to paralyze his vocal cords, is perfectly capable of speaking ape speech. The Tarman, or the speech of the Mandani, which is, I guess, the apes, where he says Tarzan Bundalo, which means Tarzan kills. He always says Kriga. I think that's exactly what he says here. And why? Why can he speak the ape speak, but not human speak? It's not explained. Why would they explain that? This is the sort of cartooniness with the story. At least it's not anti-white ritual humiliation shit. At least it's not that. At least it's not, Jewish propaganda, anti-white Jewish propaganda. But it is, Tarzan has been subdued by technology and just ruthless tyranny, and none of his skills have availed him. They could kill him at will. Jane, meanwhile, has been taken to the penthouse of this guy, Roger Tory, and his butler, Chalmers, is bringing her some lunch or whatever. And she takes this, I'm sorry if I had my finger in her face that whole time. Let me hold this up a moment for you guys to check out Lady Jane Greystoke. Clearly beautiful, as all comic book heroines should be. And if she's, played by Margot Robbie, it would make sense why this guy has kidnapped her and taken her to his personal penthouse. Here she tries to escape past Chalmers and almost makes it to the elevator or the stairs, where she is subdued by some guards. This is, I guess, typical sort of 50s, 60s television style drama. This doesn't seem like much of a stretch. It's certainly not Tarzan, but it seems like the sort of thing you'd see on television any primetime night of the week. Destiny, Falcon Crest, the soap operas that had a little bit of action in them. I suppose those probably weren't the ones that did. I don't know the ones that did. Simon and Simon, Magnum PI, I don't know. But here we get inside the safari, and Tarzan is in a cage way up here on the second floor where no one can really see him face to face. And that is the end of this episode. We've only got a few left, and then I have annual number 2, but not annual number 1. So this is, and this cover is not done by Sal Buscema and Bob Hall, who are the main artists. But there's someone else's name here, and I'm going to look this up, so excuse me. So this cover is signed Buckler and McCloud, spelled like Connor McCloud of the clan McCloud. It's right up here on this prison bar. Buckler McCloud. And this is a pretty good comic book. I've been looking for the next series to get. There's a Lone Wolf and Cub full series of floppies. I think it's like 50 issues on sale right now on eBay. It doesn't end for a few days, so we'll see if I can win that. I've got a few more Conans in on their way to me in the mail, and you know that should be good. Hopefully they're not all ones that I've done already. They didn't list the numbers, and I'm hoping that there's a few of them at least that we haven't already done here. This is the Ace of Clubs, and in this card, this conflicted card, this is deck number 1. In this card, this says you have a 6-month supply of food and water and energy, whether that's propane or wood for the fire, for your family. And one of your good friends shows up at your doorstep just as you're about to bug out, or it's the end of the world, you're just about to lock down whatever you're going to do. And he says he's been robbed and he lost everything. And to take in him and his family, it would cost half of your supplies. What do you do? I'm just going to come right out and say it. There must be half a dozen or a dozen versions of this in this deck. Sometime, not right now because we're on camera, but probably before tomorrow, I'm going to go through the deck. Well, that would be kind of a bad thing because then I'd be reading all of them, and kind of the fun is getting a new one every day. But I'm going to go through the ones that we've already looked at and see how many are some version of this, where you have your supplies and someone is showing up with some scenario of share with us or you're a jerk, share with us or we're going to die sort of scenario. And how do you decide? What criteria do you use to decide whether or not you'll share with him? They go so far as to say on this card that he has very few skills, bardable skills, like he's not a doctor, right? And if you're not in war, a trauma surgeon is not necessarily the most valuable person from day to day. Here's the thing, the most valuable person from day to day is a person who's going to do hard labor and not complain. When you're talking about the end of the world, you're probably talking about agriculture by hand. That's what that is. Caring for a field and guarding that field from wandering herbivores, which could mean collecting some venison. So what do? I would say you take your neighbor in and put them to work, and then you have to match them step for step. And you have now doubled the size of your community. Whereas if you force them out, then all you have is yourself, your wife, and your children. And that means all you have is you. Because your wife has to protect the children. Now, if you have a friend, then you have you and your friend, and one of you can be out gathering supplies while the other one sleeps. The best thing that could happen to you in that scenario is that you run across someone who could, that would be grateful to share your food with. If you have 6 months of food and all you have is yourself and your family, you need to go out and find someone who needs your help and get them and offer them half of everything you have if they will help you and be your partners in this end of the world scenario. That's the mindset you need to have. This is the best case scenario. Especially if it's a friend you can trust. It doesn't matter how many skills he has. You probably don't know how to hotwire a car. You can learn though. You can learn anything. You can learn anything. You can learn it in a pinch. You can learn it over time. You can learn anything with practice. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gotten this far. Technology is changing so fast that if you are listening to this on YouTube or wherever you're listening to it, you can learn. You can do fucking anything. Tarzan is a perfect example of who you are. Know it in your soul, white man. You are this capable. At least this capable. He had no education. Look at what he did. you should be capable of so much more. For my part, I'm on a bit of a writer's block. I'm doing a bunch of research. I've got my main characters trapped out near Devil's Tower in Wyoming, and I need to get them back to Los Angeles. Whether I have them fly back or drive back, I don't know yet. So I'm researching the route. If I have them drive back, I get to have them go through Salt Lake City and Las Vegas, which could be a lot of fun. It's about a 20-hour trip. But there's also plenty of airports around there, so I could have them try to get a plane and fail. We'll see what happens. It's 6 characters, so it's kind of a few. It's like Tarzan. They had to use 2 planes. I could use 1, It's a lot of fun. I was thinking about having them be attacked by wild pigs while they're driving through the wilderness. Like a herd of wild pigs just runs them off the road, and then they have to be careful and stay inside the vehicles or they'll get eaten. So I think that might be tonight's chapter. It's kind of it kind of writes itself, So anyhow, Legacy of a Mad Scientist, Legend of Ashley Fox, out here for you guys to check out as audiobooks. The story of the Micronics. The Micronics is a mental to computer interface, like mind to computer interface. That's literally what it means, MCX. And it is a metal that's super dense, and so it can hold computer circuitry on like a microscopic level. And it can also change itself into things as well as reflect the Earth's gravity. This is how they make anti-gravity cities and cars in the future. Is a special metal called beryllium, and it is a T256. So it's very dense, and it holds antimatter in place with it. So the space that it should take up, it takes up twice as much. You should check it out. It's all very scientifically written down in the first issue, the first novel. The beginning of the first novel is really all about it. So anyhow, I'll be back tomorrow. See you guys.